I'm missing.
Welcome to Faith and Calm. This is class number 201. 201. We're starting a new century here. And next week, unfortunately, next week will be Pesach. Hopefully, we'll all be in Eretz Yisrael, and we'll be able to bring the carbon.
Next 2 nights. Next 2 Monday nights.
Next 2 Monday nights.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're not going to be having class. But but we still need to prepare for Pesach. That's where we are right now, and so let's go through it. So am I hearing beeping in the background?
So mute.
Mute.
Yeah.
Mute. Okay. And so let's see. What was I going to say? Oh. So it says in the Haggadah, it says, "B'chol dor v'dor chayiv anash leirot shehu yotze ki'ulu husha o yotze miMitzrayim." In every generation, you have to see yourself as the Jew yourself are going out of Egypt, and that is not just a remembering about what happened in Egypt. Oh, it's a nice story. We're telling what was the past and so forth. You actually have to see and experience and taste going out of Egypt. And that is one of the main mitzvahs of the night of Pesach. And what we're going to try and do now today is trying to show you we're really more than I've seen, and I can never really think about it. We are experiencing personally, and as the collective Jewish people, this idea of being in Mitzrayim, and being in Egypt, and being in bondage, and having to go out of it, and this is exciting times. Not bad times. This is actually exciting times. So what do I mean by that? So one of the things, I don't think I mentioned it last week, but if you look around, what's going on in history right now, there was this thing called the solar eclipse. And did I mention it to you? Not in the class. In the class, I talked about it? No, I don't think it was in the class.
Yeah.
I don't think it was in the class.
I spoke about it.
You spoke about it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So, but one of the things about the solar eclipse that I heard after my wife said something about it was that it's very interesting. The sun is compared to the non-Jews. The moon is compared to the Jews. So usually a lunar eclipse is considered bad for the Jews because Jews, moon, they wax, they wane, they're happy, they're there, they're present, and then all of a sudden you're down in the dumps, and you run away, and you're black, and everything is difficult, and so forth. And then all of a sudden it comes back out again, and it's exciting, and you see them again, and that's the Jewish experience, it's ups and downs, ups and downs. Non-Jews, they have pretty much as consistent. The sun every day comes up and do something, except when you have a solar eclipse. And what is the solar eclipse? The solar eclipse is that the moon actually outshines the sun. It usually doesn't. But the moon actually blocks the entire sun out. And that's also what's neat. It happened on Rosh Chodesh Nisan, which is always the beginning of the month of miracles. And that means that a month of miracles where this little thing called the moon, the Jew, is blocking out the light of the sun. And actually, you actually see normally you can't see the dark side of the moon, but in this way, you do actually see the dark side of the moon. Not that you actually see it lit up, but you do see that its blackness, you do see. And that also is usually not seen at the time of a new moon, because of the new moon there's no moon. That's what it means, new moon. There is no moon. There is no moon. The time of when the new moon happens is when there's no moon, and then they announce it when they first can see the first sliver, obviously. But here you actually see the new moon, the moon in its complete newness, and that also is an interesting thing to it for a miracle time. Now, why do we say that that's a miracle time? Okay, so let's look at that now. So my wife has been having interesting discussions. Well, let's start it out with the Torah, and then we'll work the current events into the situation. So, what?
Okay, keep going.
Right. I just got some stage direction here. Okay. so so one of the interesting things everybody knows that happens on the night of the of Pesach is we read there's the youngest child at the table asks the four questions. And he asks four questions, right? What is the four questions? They ask, okay, everybody shout them out at once. First question is what?
Why do we have to dip our food twice?
Things first? No, matzah. No.
Ours, Chabad is dipping.
Dipping. Yeah. Why do we have to dip? Yeah. Well, we have to drink. Most days we don't dip even once. And on the night of Pesach, we dip twice. And then we ask about matzah, and then we ask about more, and then we ask about reclining.
There are different four questions?
Yeah.
Those are the four questions.
Boy, oh boy. Okay.
You don't know the four questions?
Of course she does.
She has to ask the four questions.
Yeah, of course she does. Go ahead.
So, ow.
I'm putting my phone back in my pocket. So before you take
Okay.
it, my pocket.
All right.
Sorry.
Those are the four questions. Now, anybody know ever see where the answers to the four questions are?
Yes.
Yes.
What are the answers? Where do you see the answers to the four questions?
Yes. This year I read something.
Yeah.
Brian, blah, 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 blah.
You know itself is the answer.
Paro, whatever.
Well, let me tell you what. This is what I heard. That it takes a long time. We start talking Avidu Hayinu, Avadim Hayinu, Lepara Mitzrayim. That's not an answer to the matzah question or the reclining question or anything else. No, we don't even really get the answer until almost, all the way into the meal where we start reading matzah zu shanu ochlin. Okay, that's the answer to the matzah. Now we know why we eat matzah. We also talk about the bitter herbs. Okay, now we know about the bitter herbs. More says shanu ochlin. We also get an answer to the idea of reclining because it says a person has to see himself as he went out from Egypt. That's what we just said. Every generation, a person has to see that he himself went out of Egypt. So that means that's the answer to the third question. So we got answers to the three of the questions: matzah zu, more, and also to why we are reclining, because free people recline, and Pesach is a time for re-experiencing going out into freedom. What is that beeping?
Maybe it's
I will
mute.
mute it.
It sounds like medical.
Okay, so but we don't get an answer to the dipping.
Excuse me, Yecheskel Shimon.
Yeah, I hear you.
You muted yourself, Molly.
Oh, that's okay.
You muted yourself.
I was just coming back. All right. Okay. Did you have a question, Molly?
I couldn't
All right.
see you.
I
and
don't
I
see
couldn't
you, but I hear
very
you.
well.
I hear you.
No,
All
no,
right.
but I couldn't see you when I first logged in, and I couldn't hear you very well.
Oh, okay.
And now?
Anyway, it's better. Thank you.
Okay.
Good.
All right. So those are the three of the questions. The fourth question, the dipping, we never really get an answer to. You never see, at least not obviously, what the answer is. And of course, that's one of the, the odd things about Judaism. We don't answer, but there is an answer. And I think it's a very interesting answer. And hopefully it's very much relevant to today and to be enhancing our experience of going out of Pesach. And it comes from a couple of different places. But one of the pieces of the story is you have to understand, how did the Jews get in? There was when the Jews were told to leave Egypt, they were told to do a couple things. They were told to prepare matzah. They were proposed to have a lamb, which was also brought in the time of the temple until the temple was destroyed. We had commemorated with the lamb. We had the matzah. And they were told to do a third thing, which is they were supposed to take another lamb. They were supposed to slaughter it. They were supposed to take the blood. They were supposed to dip this thing called hyssop branches.
Oregano.
What?
Some people say it's oregano.
Hyssop is, it was
Okay.
hyssop. Okay. and you were supposed to dip it in the blood and then put it on the 2 doorposts. And that was a sign that you weren't supposed to go out. If you did go out, you were in big trouble that night. You had to stay inside. And that was a sign that God, and we read this and we read it in the Haggadah and we sort of go, yeah, this is sort of weird, I mean, why did God need the sign? Why did he need to have the blood on the doors? Why couldn't he have done it a different way? He knew what he was. But what is this whole point of this whole blood on the doorpost? And we never did it again. It only happened when the Jews were in Egypt, which is sort of, I'm sorry. Yeah, I hear you. It was only when it was only that one time ever in history. Why? So actually, it's very interesting and it's very important to the night of Pesach. How did the Jews get in that business of being in Egypt? It happened with a story.
They dipped the coat. They dipped Joseph's coat.
They dipped Joseph. Okay, good. Very good. We have a brilliant scholar behind me. Ow. I'm getting bruised here.
Okay.
So when Yosef, the Jews didn't get down into Egypt just because they were looking for food. They were down there looking for Yosef. How did Yosef end up down there? It's because his brothers sold him. Why did the brothers sold him? Because they were fighting with him and they were angry with him, and they felt that he was, another sibling, he was going to take over and so forth. And so they concocted this whole plot. They put him into a pit. They sold him and they dipped his coat in blood so that Yaakov would never go looking for him, because Yaakov had a lot of money. Yeah, if Yaakov knew that Yosef had gone missing, he would have hired all sorts of private detectives and he would have found them. But, when the coat all came back bloody, what are you going to do? The animal probably killed him and so forth. There was really nothing to do. So they dipped Yosef's coat in blood. In order for them to be able to get out of Egypt 210 years later, they had to go through a process of rejuvenation. And that process of rejuvenation, psychologically and physically, means that you have to go back into the same situation and you have to rectify what originally was the problem. And that is what they had to do. And that is what the dipping is all about. The dipping of the blood is dipping symbolic also of the dipping of the blood of Yosef's coat in blood. They had to dip the hyssop into blood, and that was the sign that to be able to go out. They had to re-experience and fix the problem that they had before. Now, how did they do that? So that's an interesting thing. Why did they have to stay in the room in the whole night? And why also is that the same thing that in the time of the temple you also had to do, which is when you made your basic offering, you had to make a family together, and you had to make this group, and you had to stay in there. Nobody was allowed to break the circle. Nobody was allowed to leave the room. Everybody had to stay together and eat this meal together. Nobody was allowed out. What is going on with that? Why do you have to stay together? So that's the story. That actually is the story. The story is that when Jews are not united, they cause gullus. They cause the exile. They cause breakdown among the Jewish people. You don't have to all necessarily in a family agree with each other. You don't necessarily have to see eye to eye, but you have to know that you're together with them, that that they're part of your family, and therefore through thick and thin, you're my brother, you're my sister, and you belong to me. And that was what the Jews had to do to eat. They have to eat together. And, when you eat together, you're all one family. You have to come to the Seder, and everybody has to feel like they belong and that they're needed and that they're appreciated and that they're seen and that they're wanted and they're needed. And everybody should feel like that at the time of the Seder. And nobody's allowed to go out. So everybody has to stay together. And that's also, and that also is interesting because the word hyssop was an interesting kind of vegetable. Actually, the Rashi explains that this was one of the plants that was used for cleaning. It was considered a laundry detergent in those days. And therefore, it was a process of cleansing, of physical cleansing. But here we're seeing it's used as spiritual cleansing, that you have to use a spiritual cleansing agent to dip the blood. Now, we don't actually dip blood and put anything on our doorpost, but we do dip something, and we dip it twice, right? The karpas. What is with the karpas? So interesting, Rashi explains that the coat of Yosef was made out of karpas and techeles. That's what he says. It means fine linen and blue threads. So the word for linen, there's many different words, but it's interesting. The Rashi emphasizes the word karpas. And of course, we dip our karpas in salt water. Why salt water? Because that's Yaakov's tears. Because that's what we don't use blood. We can't use blood. We can't drink blood. We can't eat blood. But we do have tears. We have the tears of Yaakov, the tears of crying about the Jewish people, about the children not getting along together. And this is a big lesson in today, and then also an understanding of what's going on in the land of Israel and so forth, is when we're all united together, then our enemies are scared of us. But when we start just a little bit pulling apart and getting back to fighting with each other and so forth, bingo, all of a sudden Iran starts sending missiles and all kinds of other kinds of stuff coming back to us again. So here's a lesson for us, practical lesson, a very realistic lesson, and that is, it's very important that the Jews realize we don't have to necessarily see eye to eye. We have to know that we're all one family, and we're all united, and we're all part of one people, and so forth. And and it's not, we're not going to get any help from, you may not get any help from America or the European Union or the G7 or anyone else. They just say, you know what, you should just go suffer through this again and again and again, over and over again. Please don't retaliate. You could cause us to upset our apple cart and so forth. But the fact of the matter is that, when you have as Winston Churchill said, appeasing the enemy is like feeding the alligator and crocodile and hoping that you'll be the last one that is eaten. So you don't appease an alligator. They're just going to try and attack. They do say they want to attack again and again and again. So there is really no point in appeasing it. That's exactly what causes them to attack over and over again. So this is our lesson. This is our lesson about being strong. And this is also a lesson about the incredible unity of the Jewish people. And I'll finish with a little story that actually highlights this. So one of the casualties of the current war, there were 3 boys who were captured by Hamas. And one of them's name was Yonatan Chaim. His mother's name is I think maybe Esther Chaim. Anyway, she's pretty famous. She's right now, she's on, she just got a big award from the president and so forth. Anyway, they were held captive, and he actually was he was in the Golani Brigade, and he actually had a very difficult life. He didn't succeed well in school. He got into a lot of trouble. But when he got into the Golani Brigade, he was a real fighter, a real passionate soldier, and but he was captured during the Simchas Torah War, and he and 2 of his friends. But they managed to tunnel out and escape from Hamas. And unfortunately, it was a very difficult, very confusing situation. There were some Israeli soldiers in the same area, and they couldn't determine whether these were Hamas or whether they were not. And so to protect themselves, they shot them, and unfortunately they died from friendly fire. And of course, it was a tragedy, and everybody felt it was a huge tragedy. But the mother of one of these, of Yonatan Chaim, she immediately got on the news, and she said, I'm heartbroken about what happened to my son. But the one thing I don't want to have happen from this is, and she gave a personal message to the soldiers saying, please don't think bad about yourself. I know you are just doing your job, and that you are trying to protect yourself in the best possible way in a very, very difficult situation. And there's absolutely nothing to be gained. It won't bring back my son. It won't make me feel any better if you start torturing yourselves. So please don't torture yourself. Please don't feel bad about yourselves and so forth, and realize that you were doing what you were supposed to be doing, and you're brave soldiers, and we are behind you. And this caused a tremendous uproar in the entire country to the connection of Jews one to the other, the feeling that she had for the other soldiers, realizing, it's just not, it's, hating the other the soldiers for what was an unfortunate accident is not going to do anything good. And it was an accident, and it was a terrible accident. And so she publicly announced this. Now there's a postscript to the story. So after a couple weeks, she got a message from somebody, and it was another soldier who had been in Gaza a number of years previously, and unfortunately, he was also involved in a friendly fire situation. And for the last 9 years, he could not get out of his house. The only time he would ever leave his house was to go to psychological therapy. And the rest of the time, he felt so bad about himself for killing another Jew that he wouldn't even leave his house. And he said when he heard what the mother said, he went to visit her and to personally thank her for giving back his soul and being able to actually realize that what he was doing was actually helping the Jewish people. So this is part of the incredible unity. It just takes your breath away about the Jewish people, the tremendous kindness of the Jewish people, the feeling for each other, the care for each other. And this you not see. And I think this is one of the hearts of anti-Semitism, is that's what they hate about us, is how much, how much we represent an aspect of unity and godliness in this world, how we're trying to, the only thing we want to do is to help spread this message of peace to the entire world. And unfortunately, those who are dedicated against this message, and so forth, see us as the messengers of the opponents of them. And so we're just going to continue to do what, because God is protecting us and God is watching over us. And if you think that God is not watching over us, look what just happened this week. Do you realize what kind of a miracle just happened with those missiles? I know a little bit about it. It is almost impossible when you have a hypersonic ballistic missile, which is coming at you, bullets usually go close to the speed of sound. These go over the speed of sound, and you're trying to shoot a bullet back at it and hit it on there. It's almost impossible to hit the same thing. So it's that you get 20-30% kill rate attack is just amazing in itself. You've got winds, you've got all sorts of unaccounted effects that could be happening. Even if you're constantly readjusting the fins of these missiles, they can't go that fast and so forth. So to hit it head on, and these are all, impact-based missiles and so forth, is almost impossible. Not only that, but this was never tested before. David Sling, the Arrow, this was not the Iron Dome. This was for a completely different system and so forth. And for it to work 99% of the time, and that the only person who was injured was a 10-year-old Bedouin girl, I mean, it's just like, it's just not. So realize, people say it's Nissan and we're supposed to be seeing miracles. We're seeing miracles. And so therefore, that's exactly what it meant, that in every generation, a person has to see himself going out of Egypt. Jews, wake up. We are seeing miracles. We are actually experiencing something like what the Jews saw when they left Egypt. Miracles, unbelievable miracles. It is not the end of the world, it's the opposite. The miracles that we're seeing right now and what that we're experiencing and the events that we're experiencing and the Mitzrayim and the darkness and the moon, and everything else. This is all about the coming of Mashiach. This is all connected to it. And that is one of the answers to the four sons, who say, hey, I don't understand what's going on. I don't see how this is going to turn around. And the answer is, of course, look, Biad Chazaka, with a strong hand, God is taking us out of Egypt. He's taking out of exile. Whether we're ready for it or not, he's forcing the issue. So stand by. It's for exciting times.
Wow.
Can I just make a comment?
Yes.
Can I just make a comment?
Go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
That woman, I'm glad we told the story about that woman. She is one of the most lofty people. If she's able, in her own despair and pain, to comfort some other person who she doesn't know that accidentally killed her son, That is like pure godless, bigger than pure godless. It is. How does a
Absolutely.
person even humanly do that? She's worried that he's going to feel bad, or that they're going to feel bad.
Yeah,
That's incredulous. It is.
it is.
Who does it? And she's not a
Well,
firm
and in the
lady.
process, she saved the life of another person too.
That's right.
How did she do that?
Through that.
If you were listening, yeah, it
Because
probably go,
Irit Chaim.
huh?
Irit Chaim. There's an interview on her.
Why? Because he was
This other guy
suicidal or something?
this other guy who was in terrible depression because he had actually had such an accident with friendly fire, and he practically stopped living life when
Oh.
years ago, and then he heard what she
9
said
years
now,
earlier.
and he got his life back.
Irit Chaim.
Yeah.
Wow.
So anyway, it is
And
incredible.
he heard her.
That is what.
He heard her message,
Yeah.
and it helped him too.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to be very short tonight because first of all, Haskell Shimon said everything I wanted to say, and I'll just say quickly the four things that I want to say. That number one, we're in an extraordinary time. Everybody can see that right now. Number two, um, we are meant to be here right now, you and I. It's our time to act on the stage. Number three, we have everything we need. We have the Torah, which can guide us, and we have the mitzvahs, which give us personal power and worldly power. And finally, what we're doing here, learning about Mashiach and the amazing time that we're in, actually advances the situation. And I just want to add tiny little facts to what Yaskol Shimon said because he really said it all and he said it so beautifully. You know, as he said, we're in Nisan, and Nisan is known as the month of miracles. And not only that, the Jews count months. They don't count months from Rosh Hashanah. They count the months of the year from Nisan. Why? So that we know that we are a miraculous people. That's the message. We count not from Rosh Hashanah, we count from Nisan, so that we should know, Jewish people, your basis is that you're a miraculous people. And you just can't tell what's going to happen, you know? Like in Egypt, they went from slavery to kings and queens in 1 second. Midnight on the 15th of Nisan, a second before they were slaves, and a second after they were free. And Hashem loves the whole story of Pesach. Hashem loves the whole story of Pesach. He loves it when we recount it, even if you're by yourself. It is a huge mitzvah to say the Haggadah out loud because Hashem and all the angels are listening. It's the absolute truth. It's said that nothing delights Hashem as much as the Jewish people talking about Yetzias Mitzrayim. And it's healthy for us because we know it's a very powerful template of what we're going through now, of the final redemption. The first redemption, there's been 4. The first redemption is a template for the last one, for ours right now. So I want to also say that, you know, personally, I think that what happened this Motzi Shabbos, this tail end of Shabbos for us and for the Israelis 2 to 4 in the morning, I don't know that there has been a bigger miracle in my lifetime. I really don't. And I think that it is on the level of Kriyas Yamsuf. I really do. And the important thing about Kriyas Yamsuf, when Hashem split the sea for us, and the Jews went through the sea, and they saw the miracle, what did they do on the other side? They sang and danced. And because they sang and danced, they merited more and more and more good. That's what we learn from that. That's how we should react to a miracle. The news wants to deflect our attention right away. Nobody said anything. Nobody considers it. Not one Jew got a scratch, not one building tumbled. It's absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. I saw one of these missiles. They're not a small thing, and it's just incredible. And the news would like you to just say, okay, But what will Netanyahu do? They immediately deflect attention, deflect the attention from the most amazing thing that has happened in the past, I don't know how many years, maybe centuries. They immediately, don't pay attention to this. Let's go focus on something. Let's make it into an anti-Semitic thing. The Jews are attacked. Well, let's find an anti-Semitic angle. Probably the Jews are going to do something to destroy them. It's just incredible. The same thing happened on October 7th. The worst butchery in human history since the Holocaust. And on a par with the Holocaust, the things that were done were, I don't know, they were like, raping women in front of their children, beheading children. I'm not familiar with that being done in the Holocaust. It was butchery beyond imagination. And what did the press do? For a day, maybe a half a day, they talked about it, and immediately the press was done with that, finished with that. Who cares about if Jews get hurt? Immediately the press went to, but how will the Jews react? Will they do something dangerous? Will they overreact? It's like we have a very, very knee-jerk anti-Semitic press. It's a knee-jerk anti-Semitic press. It's been this way for decades. And that's the reality of it. That's one reason I said it a million times. I'm so grateful that I left the profession of journalism, because it is an embarrassment. It is a total embarrassment. And anyway, so we should get up and dance and sing. And after this class is over, if you haven't danced and sung already to Hashem for the amazing, amazing kindness that he did for us, please get up and do it. And it's very, very, very gratifying. It's a very, very nice experience. And let's see. And I want to end with simply reminding everybody of the basics of Pesach. Most important thing about Pesach is that there are two huge mitzvahs. Eating the matzah, that's a huge, huge mitzvah. Make sure you eat enough of it. You got to eat at least a half a matzah. You should eat a half a matzah in 7 to 9 minutes. That's a very big mitzvah. You make the bracha. You make 2 brachas before you eat the matzah. You say ala chilas matzah. No, you say ala hamotzi lechem min haaretz, and then you say ala chilas matzah. And you say ala chilas matzah, and then you eat the matzah and try and finish it in 7 to 10 minutes. We do everything fast because that night everything went fast. Hashem took us out fast. We did everything fast. And the other huge thing is to tell the story. To tell the story, that's an enormous mitzvah, enormous thing. Eating matzah and telling the story, they're biblical level commandments. And of course, selling your matzah before Pesach. It's so easy. Just go to Chabad.org and there'll be a big banner on the top. Want to sell your matzah? It doesn't cost a penny. And it's a huge, huge mitzvah. So you guys, we're going to be off the air for 2 weeks because the first time it's going to be the first Seder, and then it's going to be the 8th night. And the 8th night of Pesach, make sure you celebrate it. It's Mashiach's day, the 8th day. And the beginning of Pesach is reminiscent. It talks about the beginning of Pesach is devoted to the original getting out of exile and the getting out of Egypt. And the last 2 days, especially the last day, is focused on the last redemption and our redemption that we're going through right now. So I want to wish everybody a Chag Kasher v'Sameach. And if anybody has any questions about Pesach, you can just email me or call me, and I'd be happy to respond. So I'm going to say goodnight for now.
No.
Oh, okay. I'll take questions. I'm going to just turn off the recording.